He says, my wife and I want to move from Chicago to Colorado. Are there certain things to look out for when moving away from family into a new area? We would line up jobs before moving and have plenty of savings. So what is there to think about when you're making a big move?
Man, okay, this is a great question. It's so interesting. The way that Thomas phrased it, my mind immediately did not go to financial, right? Like I was thinking, okay, what are the hidden costs of moving and that sort of thing? The fact that Thomas said, my wife and I, makes me think that they might be in the stage of life where either they don't have children or perhaps they have not gotten to that stage yet. And so when you think about what are one of the things that we need to think about, or some of the stuff that some of the ideas, there is a reality I think a lot of people don't realize, and I don't think I even realized this until we moved from Georgia up to Tennessee. You just kind of take for granted the natural social structure that's in place if you stay where you were born, where you're from. You don't realize, oh, I've got mom and dad here and aunts and uncles and family members and cousins. And then you uproot and you move to a completely different area, completely different part of the country, completely different spot. And you're like, man, I don't really know anybody here. So things that I didn't think were going to be an issue all of a sudden become an issue. If I need help moving furniture, moving in, I don't have someone I can call to come help me move in. If I need help watching the kids or someone to step in, I don't naturally have that person in there. So my mind, the very first place that I went is just being realistic around, okay, the things that might be easy and convenient and present right here where we are in Chicago, that might not be in Colorado. And are we prepared for those things? Have we thought through the fact that that type of social structure won't be there?
Well, I'll because we resemble this. We both have moved out of state, away from family. I think a lot of, for childcare purposes, care.com is what we were using. That was 10 years ago. I don't know if that's changed. Y'all leave in the comments where people, if you move to a new community, what's the great go-to resource to find babysitters, childcare, and things like that. Because it is, you get comfortable leaning in on family, and that's actually one of the great benefits of your kids being close to their grandparents and your cousins. I mean, I resembled that growing up. I mean, it's one of those great memories of having all those family get-togethers. But let's get back to the financial part. I immediately wrote down housing. I know when I was moving from Georgia to Tennessee, I had a sum of money in my head. We'll focus this on purchase, and then I'll come to rent here in a second, that I thought would be reasonable. But then once I started looking at housing, it was amazing how my budget increased by 40% because it's just housing was a lot more expensive here in the Nashville area than it was South Atlanta. So just go ahead and prepare yourself. Go ahead and start doing the research. Play around with the MLS system.
Now, from Chicago to Colorado, that may or may not be the case.
I don't know. I think they both have had a nice run. Chicago is still expensive. Colorado, everybody, you ask. I mean, if I got 12 people in a room, probably 9 of them are going to say they're moving to Colorado because it's just the views. It's a hot place to go. If they're not there, the other 3 are going to Nashville. The movers, by the way, if you're moving across state lines, there's different rules, regulations for interstate movers versus, in-state moves. And that was something that shocked me, is because I've always, first moves, I always did them myself. But then I realized once my friends got to a certain age and they start complaining about their backs that I needed to hire professional movers. It was easy to do it if you were just moving down the street. If you're moving 7 miles down the road, it's very affordable to hire movers to do that for you. When you cross state lines, it doesn't work as well. So what I ended up having to do, because this is where I flexed my tightwad, took some risk, I paid professional movers to load up the U-Haul, and then I drove and I know there's risks there because I'm the one driving this vehicle, but the cost savings was spectacular. And then I hired professional movers to help me unload the U-Haul. So that's a hack, because they're not allowed to drive across state lines unless they're licensed. And if you get those big interstate movers, the ones that show up with the semi trucks, you just be careful. There's a lot of crazy reindeer games that go on with that stuff. Furniture and decorating. We have done shows on funny quirky words that have financial concepts that show, like the Diderot effect and others, where you replace one thing, you need to do more. I find when we move, all of a sudden something that seemed completely comfortable, like your couch, your rugs, your chairs, seemed all reasonable, but when you move to a new place, you feel like you need new stuff, and that's expensive. So just pay attention. I would just go into, I would address every one of those elements, measure twice, cut once, and plan for it. Those 3D glasses, it doesn't have to be for starting a company or doing anything crazy in life. It can be just you want to move to a different state, so you're going to create a down-to-earth plan. You'll create the dream plan, and everything works out with jobs and cash flow. And then don't forget the do-do plan, where maybe things don't go as well as you initially planned for.
The other thing in a new area, again, you have to, cost. I would think about, okay, what doctors are you going to see? What kind of doctors do you need to see? Are you moving to an area where those doctors are going to be available? And then even silly stuff like mechanics. You move away from an area that you're in, who's going to be the person that you take your car to? Are you going to get the oil changed and that sort of thing? I'll tell you, one of our biggest logistical hurdles that we have to think through right now, because we don't live close to family. If my wife and I want to go on a trip, we want to go on a trip and not take the kids with us, it's always a two-pronged thing. We have to figure out, how do we get grandparents up here to watch the kids, or how do we get kids down to grandparents before we can take a trip? So it's another
that's a real thing.
Logistical thing you have to think through when you move far away from family. But it's not all bad. There's a lot of pros, and it makes the time when you are together much sweeter. So kudos and congratulations to you guys for making a big change, and I hope it goes awesome.